you're in the right place. This is the Eatfluencer podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Maggie Landis. Together, we are going to unpack everything about eating and discover the what, when, and how that will let you lead your best life. This is not your doctor's conversation about nutrition. Today is when you can start to love eating again. Let food be food and you be you. Get ready to get Eatfluenced. Welcome back to the Eatfluencer podcast. I'm Maggie Landis, your host here, and I'm so glad you've joined me for this episode today. This is episode number 58, and we are talking 5 hard truths about the scale today. If you're new here and you're just being introduced to me for the first time, I'm a physician, a public health nutritionist, and an anti-diet wellness expert. And the purpose of this podcast is to bring some clarity to the confusion we all feel about what to eat, how it affects our bodies, and how it potentially affects our health. We are under the influence of diet culture. All of us are. We just are. And so my mission is to uncouple our diet culture belief system from actual human nutrition and see if we can make some progress that way. Because clearly, chronic dieting is not the answer. But let me tell you what, it is the end of the year, getting close to the end of the year. If you're listening to this in real time, it's November, the beginning of November. And this time of year, diet culture gets really rowdy and really loud. One of these times of year where everything is about weight and food and managing your behavior. You know, we're going to see people we haven't seen in a long time, perhaps, especially now after coming out of COVID and this being maybe the first holiday you've gotten together with people for a couple of years. There's all of this, quote, special tempting food that comes up during the holidays. There's always the New Year's resolution narrative about how you need to start 2022 off on the right foot, which in diet culture means trying to micromanage your body. So we collectively continue to turn to the scale as a way to validate our personal value, our worth. We use the scale to justify our choices, to validate our behavior, to give us direction. A lot of us, particularly women who have, grown up through adulthood weighing themselves daily or every other day or even weekly, we use this thing, this device, to tell us who we are and how we are. And it's really just a thing. It's a device. It's a box of metal and springs and electronics and things that measure the force your body exerts against the gravitational pull of Earth. It is really a abstract, arbitrary, meaningless number, but we give it that importance. We give it so much power, and it really erodes our ability to live fully when we have this nagging little thing that really detracts us from our day-to-day, human existence. But we all do it. And I am I don't weigh myself anymore, but for a long, long time, I weighed myself every single day. And many women I know do that. And it determines the outcome of every day. And the sad part about that is that if that determines the outcome of every day, and we do it every day, we're leaving the outcome of our life at the mercy of this device, this scale. So I wanted to do a little episode today talking about the scale and unpacking some of these hard truths about it. Not so much why we keep going back to the scale. That's self-evident why we keep going back. We keep weighing ourselves because diet culture tells us that your worth is based on your weight. I mean, full stop, that weight loss is good, weight gain is bad. If you are pursuing weight loss, if you are losing weight, you are doing well for yourself and for the society at large. So we don't need to so much talk about why we're obsessed with it. We're obsessed with it because we're told to be obsessed with it. But, why the behavior keeps setting us back? Why do we give it so much value and let it take over our lives? So before I get into the 5 truths here, I just want to let you know, if you're a person who weighs yourself, this episode is not to shame you. It is just to make you think critically about your behavior. And it might make you a little uncomfortable because I'm going to chip away at this pedestal that you've put the scale on, and it might make your weighing behavior feel like it's on a little shaky ground. But this work is required. And I get this question all the time. I want to say also, if you're not in my Facebook group yet, please let me know. There's a link in the show notes to request your invitation. I'd love to have you. It is a free Facebook group, private, for women only. It's a completely weight inclusive, health at every size aligned place. But the reason I bring that up is because this is a really common issue that people have to sort of wrestle with. When you come from diet culture and a life of obsession with the scale, weighing yourself, knowing your weight to the tenths of a pound, sometimes people think that they can just back off a little. And I hope after you listen to this episode, you will reconsider the idea about just, quote, backing off a little. The non-diet approach in general, like I teach on this podcast and in all my coaching programs, is really truly about flexibility and nuance and that gray area between the black and white extremes. Generally speaking, the non-diet approach doesn't like all or nothing. That is diet culture talking. However, this may be the one exception to the rule, because in my belief, if you continue to weigh yourself and take that number to have meaning in some regard, even if you do it intermittently, even if it's just once in a while, you're still not free of the diet culture thinking. If you can walk away, leave the scale behind, just stop, you can be free. But if you are believing that the scale has meaning at all, you're not free. So I just want you to think critically about how invested you are in the scale and whether that is serving you. And, potentially this podcast will give you some ideas of how you might be able to separate yourself from that. But let's get into it. I've got 5 things. 5 hard truths. And when I say these, it almost sounds so obvious that this is not exactly, some sort of Nobel-winning new philosophy, but it's just, we forget about it because our habit is to weigh, our habit is to place value on the weight, and most of us, unless we've done this work deliberately, haven't stopped to second guess that behavior because we've done it for decades. So here we go. I got 5 things. Number 1, and this is probably the most important first piece to understand, is you can't control the scale the way you think you can control the scale. we're not walking, living, breathing algebra problems. All right. Your body is not a linear equation, but you've been told that. And I know where that comes from. That comes from this belief that calories in, calories out. And if you have more calories in and less calories out, then you're going to gain weight and blah, blah, blah. And that it's so precisely calculated that you can, cut 300 calories or whatever from your eating per day, figure out how many days you have to do that, figure out how much weight that will affect, how that'll affect your body weight and how many, we treat it like really, truly a first order linear algebra problem. And the reason? Because there's something to be sold. You see, it's if there's some way to calculate, track, count, points, graph, whatever, there's an app, there's a program, there's something to help you with this algebra problem, there's dollar signs at the end of that. But the truth is, your body, fortunately, is way more complex than that, is way more dynamic than that. We would not probably survive as a species if the inner workings of our body was a linear algebra problem. It is just way too simple of an explanation. So, yes, calories in and calories out affect your weight to a very tiny degree, but mostly at the extremes. If you are truly starving, eating little to no food, of course you'll lose weight. Like, you don't have to be a doctor to know that. And if you are consuming on a regular basis, tenfold as much energy as your body needs or more, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of calories every day. Yeah, you'll gain weight. But in the kind of normal operational range, it doesn't work that way. Having an extra 100-calorie snack or, 100 less calories in your salad dressing is not going to affect your biology. There are so many things that affect weight regulation in the human body, most of which are not in your control. There are genetic factors, epigenetic factors, environmental factors, different nuances about metabolic regulation, your GI system, all sorts of input that determines where and how much energy is used and how much is stored and where it is stored. It changes truly minute to minute to minute because the body knows what to do. See, that's the whole thing, is we want to override that and overprogram that, and we think we can make a nice little graph how we cut 300 calories from our diet for 10 days in a row, and then the scale will go down. Like, the middle area, not in the extremes, is just not algebra. You're not algebra in the middle. That's what I tell my coaching clients. Your body is not algebra in the middle. And you know this, right? Like, I can tell you all this, but you actually know this because I know you've done it, because I have done it, where you've had days or even weeks where you do everything, quote, perfect. Really, truly track every molecule of food going in your mouth and stayed within your little perfect algebraic weight loss problem, but the scale goes up or the scale doesn't change. It certainly doesn't reflect your adherence. And you're disappointed, right? Totally disappointed. There's nothing worse than eating a tiny amount of crappy diet food and being hungry all the time for days or weeks, to weigh yourself and find out that it's, quote, not even working. All right. But the reason it's not working is because we believe the scale is predictable and predictable in a linear fashion, and it is not. So the summary of that is you can't control the scale the way you think you can control the scale. And we've got to let go of that belief that we can, because that thought is controlling us. And that is the crux of the problem. Okay, so moving on here, number 2. And hear me out on this one, because it's not going to sound right away. But I believe that when you continue to weigh yourself and rely on that scale as a measure of you, it affects you negatively no matter what happens on the scale. So there's only 3 possible outcomes when you weigh yourself, right? Your weight either goes up from where it was before, it goes down from where it was before, or it stays the same. There's only 3 choices. Now, obviously, it is going to have a negative impact on you and your mental health and how you feel about yourself if it goes up, because we believe we've failed, particularly if you've, quote, worked hard this week or this day. It is disastrous for us. And culture tells us that. Diet culture messaging is that your weight going up is bad, uniformly bad, no matter why that is. You didn't have willpower, you didn't work hard enough, you're lazy, gluttonous, out of control, you're not smart, whatever it is. When your weight goes up, that reflects badly on you. Now, I'm going to throw this out there, but I think if it stays the same, that is problematic as well, because what we interpret that to mean is you're not doing enough. You should do more. You should work harder. You should restrict just a little more. You should exercise just a little more. You should double down on your efforts, because staying the same is not progress. It's just the same. And let's be honest, if you are weighing yourself all the time, you're wanting it to go down. That's why you're weighing yourself all the time, waiting for that number to go down. And so when it stays the same, that's the scale, leaking into our little subconscious and planting this message that, well, it didn't go up, but I can do more. I should control this better. I can work harder. And this commentary is not helpful. It keeps us in this place where the scale controls our value. Now, here's the part where I'm going to ruffle a few feathers. I think even if the scale goes down, this is bad. And when you stand on the scale and the number goes down from yesterday, you feel that little lightness in your heart and little thrill, but I think that's bad. Why? Because it reinforces the narrative to you that weight loss is desirable, that weight loss equals excitement, that weight loss is validation, that weight loss is joy, that weight loss is the answer, that you're making progress and progress is measured in pounds, that you've been, quote, good, that losing weight is going to make you better, stronger, more valuable. When you lose weight, that little spark of enthusiasm is justifying this obsession with the scale and what you're doing to move, really, literally, the needle. And it may not be healthy, what you're choosing. It may not be freedom. It may be restricting and punishing. It may be disordered. It may be really harming you. But when we continue to bring the scale back as the central figure in our health journey, we are really stuck because we have this illusion of control, like I talked about just a moment ago, and we aren't really in control. Truthfully, and we're talking, for those of you that are daily weighing, we're talking about tenths of pounds. That is negligible. Come on. I mean, really, truthfully, you had nothing to do with whether you lost or gained a couple of tenths of a pound in 24 hours. Maybe your body had to use up some more glycogen stores. And did you know that glycogen is stored with 3 molecules of water? So maybe you diuresed a little bit. Maybe your body had to work harder to maintain your temperature. Maybe you're fighting off an infection. Maybe there's some increased energy need. Our level of enthusiasm for something so small and so trivial and this nearly microscopic measurement of a weight change is evidence of our disordered relationship with the scale and with diet culture. So there you have it. I don't see how good comes off the scale, whether the number goes up or stays the same or goes down. I think it's keeping us stuck, which is why, to me, this is the one thing that you really have to kind of just let go of cold turkey. There's no, in my opinion, weaning of the scale. It's on or off. And the reason I think that it's not that important is number 3. Weight is not a very good measure or really any measure of health. What? Am I really a doctor? Am I really saying that? Yes, I really am. Your weight is a noun, not a verb. It's not an actionable item. It's not a thing to do. We have this misconception that weight and health are synonyms, and they're just not. They're 2 separate things, and they're not coupled together nearly as much as we have been led to believe. The whole health at every size construct is the definition of how they are separated. Say hello to my dog Titus, who's barking at the UPS man. If you need more information on health at every size, go back to episode 9 or 18. Those are episodes that I basically, unpack the health at every size thing in a lot more detail than I'm going to do here. But the idea that health is a number on the scale is really just a tragic way of approaching health. Health can be defined a lot of different ways. There's not one way. It's really individual. For you, it might be clinical. It might be having a lower blood pressure, having a lower hemoglobin A1C. It might be getting off of a medication. It might be a psychological effect. Health might mean having more energy to be productive at work. It might mean having more quality sleep. It might be relational. You want to be able to participate in hikes with your friends, playing, soccer in the yard with your kids. Health might be mental. It might be clarity of thought, less brain fog, better memory. All of these things that we're talking about represent some sort of function of the human body. Really, health is a dynamic, functional thing. And your weight in no way represents function. So please stop saying you need to lose weight, quote, for your health. There's lots of ways to lose weight. Many of them totally unhealthy. I mean, heck, there's about no faster way to lose weight than to take up a cocaine habit or something. But if you want to improve your health, if you want to, by the way, that's a side note, you're not required to, but if you want to, then we need to talk about improving and optimizing the functionality of our body. And when we continue to focus on weight, which is this static noun thing, we're really distracted from health. And this really just fires me up, because this is one of the worst troll comments I get when I post something about how, people should stop weighing themselves, stop focusing on their weight. People will say, well, I can't believe you're a doctor and you don't even care about health. Well, here's the truth. I care so much about health and accurate health information that I want zero confusion, zero distractions, zero invasive thoughts about weight, because I want to exclusively talk about health. All right? So here's a little exercise, because this is hard to uncouple in your brain if you have had health and weight married together forever, like many of us have. Okay, so when somebody comes to me and says, I want to lose weight, and I say, why do you want to lose weight? And they say to be healthy. This is how it always goes. This is probably how it goes in your head. So now the next question is, what does your version of health feel like and look like in your life in terms of functioning? What does your body physically feel like? What does your mind feel like? What do you do in your day? What is your routine? What are your abilities? And go back to the top of that list, cross off the first line where it says, I want to lose weight for my health, and then look at the rest of the list. That's it. You've got dozens, hundreds of things to potentially work towards or work on, none of which have to do with the scale. So we've just got to separate those things. Okay, moving on here. Number 4. And number 4 and number 5 are tied together here. Number 4, nobody else knows your weight. All right, back to this whole daily scale weighing of ourselves conversation. We, as individuals, are so wrapped up in these little microscopic changes. Like I said, we're talking tenths of pounds. We are elated or totally crushed over these little changes. And guess how many people you can look at with your eyeballs and tell whether they have lost or gained tenths of a pound? 0, none, nunca, nada. Well, guess how many people around you know if you come into work and you're in a terrible mood and you're making self-deprecating jokes about your body and you won't go out to lunch with them because you're trying to punish yourself for gaining a tenth of a pound. 100% of the people will recognize that. So, we are fixated on the weight. But the problem comes because that fixation lets the scale determine how we feel about ourselves. And that is what we put out into the world, and everybody around you sees that. Okay? The same thing with clothes. I know clothes is the sticking point with women. They're just can't bear to upsize their clothes if they need to, because it, represents failure somehow. But nobody knows what size your clothes are. Nobody sees the tag in your clothes. But if you are uncomfortable and disturbed and distracted all day long because your clothes are too small and clothes are too tight, you're thinking all the time how badly your size is affecting your life. And, we're not in this for other people's opinion, but if you're trying to draw more attention to yourself and your body, wearing clothes that don't fit is a really darn good way, right? We all can explain that. We've all seen people wearing clothes, no matter what size the body is. If the clothes are way too small for that body, everybody's looking. So if you just get the clothes that fit your body, not only do you feel free, comfortable, content, not distracted, not obsessed with your body minute to minute to minute as you feel the clothes digging into your body, nobody else knows what size they are or how much you weigh or how much weight you've gained or lost or whatever. Nobody knows. And this brings me to my fifth and last talking point today, is that nobody else cares. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares what you weigh. You care. We as individuals are giving the scale all this importance. Our behavior is dictated by it. Our investment in dieting and weight loss pursuits centralize that belief that the scale gives us meaning. Our worth is created by this number. Our success or failure of a day is measured by a number. But, spoiler alert, nobody else cares. It's a general rule of life that other people are not paying attention to you at the level of detail that you are paying attention to you. Right? I mean, we really are pretty self-absorbed people. But, if I asked you why you chose your partner, why do you love your kids, would you mention because they weigh X and XX pounds? No. It wouldn't even cross your mind to mention that. If I asked you, why do you admire your boss? Why do you like spending time with your best friend? Why did you vote for the person you voted for in the city council election? I mean, you would not ever mention their shape or size of their body as a reason that they have meaning to you. What do you say about dead people at their funeral? You don't stand there and say, oh, I'm just so glad she could shop in the petite section, and what a huge accomplishment that she closed all her Apple rings, and those, pants were so flattering on her. Like, no. So this continual relationship we have with the scale is us believing that we have a continual relationship with the scale. We are making it important. Nobody else, number one, knows, or number two, cares. It also doesn't define your health or your value or your importance or really represent any sort of functionality of your body. And hopefully you can see from my argument here that it's a negative distraction whether the number goes up or down or stays the same, that there's really no good outcome. The only good outcome is to stop using it to validate ourselves, really, truly. So here's my challenge to you this week. Can you leave the scale behind? Are you willing to even try? Could you do a month, let's say, I'm just picking that, without weighing yourself? What would that feel like? What would that look like? How would that change your day? How would that change your behavior? How would that change your mood? So there's two ways this can go. Either, yes, you can do it. Maybe some of you already have done it. And in this case, sometimes cold turkey is just the best way, is to pack up the scale, put it away. I mean, I still have a scale at my house. I have to measure my dog sometimes. I'm in the middle of harvesting a bunch of pecans right now, so I like to weigh my pecan sacks before I take them to get shelled. There's reasons I have a scale, but I don't weigh myself. And I just cold turkey stopped doing it a while back. But if that sounds or feels really uncomfortable to you, or you try ditching the scale and you feel compulsed to go back, just pause for a second. And what are those feelings that are coming up? What are they? And in the most objective, neutral way possible, let's check and see if those are actually true feelings you have about yourself, or those false beliefs that you have gotten from a diet culture narrative. I'd love to hear if you tried this. I'd love to hear if you've already done this. There's no harm, right? It's not like I'm telling you to do something. I'm telling you not to do something, for Pete's sake. Like, there's no, what's the worst thing that happens if you stop weighing yourself? You don't know how much you weigh. I mean, really, what is like the worst possible outcome? So nothing, right? give it a try. Let me know how it goes. I really want to hear. If you're in my Facebook group, I want to hear. If you are want to send me a message on social media or an email, I would love to hear, because the scale is keeping us stuck as women. We are collectively, continuing to elevate this measure of weight as a measure of importance. And until we get past that, we're not going to make a lot of progress anywhere else. So let me know how it goes. And as always, I like to remind you, if you have a moment to pause on your podcast player, give me a little feedback, super, super quick. Even just tap the stars to give me a 5-star rating. If you have comments, I'd love to see your review. It really does work in favor of getting this message in front of more women who need it. All right. Happy to talk to you as always. There's a new episode every Wednesday here on the Eatfluencer podcast. So thanks for joining me today. Until next time. Thank you so much for being here today. If you love what you've learned, follow me on social media at Maggie Landis MD, and you'll never miss a thing. You can also check out my website at maggielandismd.com and sign up to be part of our community of eaters. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll talk again soon.